What if the greatest leap in human intelligence began at the very moment we were closest to disappearing forever? What if the birth of creativity, of symbols, tools, language, came not from peace or progress, but from cold, hunger, and a sky turning black? 74,000 years ago, after the Toba supereruption, the world dimmed. A thick shroud of ash blotted out the sun. Plants died in silence. Animals vanished across continents. And early Homo sapiens, fragile, scattered, unprepared, stood on the edge of extinction. In that darkness, they faced a terrifying truth. Everything they knew suddenly no longer worked. But instead of breaking, something inside them began to glow. A small, stubborn spark. A new way of thinking. The earliest roots of the creativity that now defines our entire species. And the question that lingers today is this: did Toba almost end humanity, or did it force us to become human in the fullest sense? To answer that, we must return to the ashes and follow the minds that awakened within them. Before Toba erupted, the world our ancestors knew was challenging but understandable. They hunted antelope along open plains. They gathered shellfish along warm coasts. They shaped simple stone flakes, chipped quickly and used without ceremony. Their art, if it existed, was faint, experimental. Their words, if they had them, were soft, limited, perhaps more gesture than speech. And yet life had a rhythm, a predictable cycle of seasons, migrations, and small discoveries shared between kin. But beneath this fragile stability lay a constant truth, one we easily forget. Early humans lived one change away from disaster. They did not know it yet, but the world had already begun to shift under their feet. No one could name what was coming, but the signs were there. A faint haze in the sky, a week where the sun seemed smaller, birds flying erratically, as if confused by the light, night winds growing sharp and metallic, animals migrating early, leaving behind a silence that unsettled even the most seasoned hunters. Small groups whispered around evening fires, sensing something was wrong, but they had no maps, no science, no warnings. All they had were instincts, and instincts whispered fear. And yet these were only the first tremors of a disaster that would reshape the fate of our species. Then the world cracked open. Toba erupted with a force unimaginable today. Columns of ash shot miles into the sky. The earth trembled across continents. Forests were flattened. The air thickened with particles that turned noon into twilight. As weeks passed, the ash spread across oceans. As months passed, temperatures plunged. As years passed, ecosystems collapsed. Herds died. Rivers froze. Vegetation disappeared. And humans, never numerous to begin with, dwindled to a tiny remnant. Some estimates suggest only a few thousand survived. But even that was not the worst part. The true danger came after the explosion. In the unending winter it left behind, a winter that demanded more than strength, a winter that demanded invention. Imagine waking up in a world where everything familiar has changed. The animals you once hunted are gone. The plants you once gathered are dead. The scents, the colors, the sounds of life itself feel thinner. In the dim orange glow of firelight, families huddled tighter than ever before. Stones felt colder than memory. Wind carried a strange silence, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. Here, in these small groups and flickering shelters, something profound began. People whispered ideas. They experimented with new techniques. They tried, failed, and tried again. Survival forced innovation. This wasn't the evolution of bodies. It was the evolution of thought. Strength alone could not fight the cold. Speed alone could not catch the few remaining animals. Instinct alone could not navigate a changing world. The survivors realized something remarkable. The most powerful tool they had was not in their hands, but in their minds. Culture, shared technique, shared memory, shared meaning became the real weapon of survival. This shift is one of the greatest turning points in our story. It marks the moment humans began relying primarily on ideas rather than physical traits. Knowledge became inheritance, ingenuity became tradition, and culture became the shield that protected the fragile flame of humanity. Archaeologists see it clearly in the soil layers dated to the post-Toba era. Tools suddenly become sharper, more symmetrical, more carefully crafted. Stone points show signs of heat treatment, an early form of engineering. Bone needles appear, suggesting clothing suited for cold climates. Fishing tools emerge in regions where land animals had vanished. These innovations spread not through genes, but through teaching, something incredibly rare in the animal world. One person's breakthrough became everyone's advantage. Crisis didn't just force invention, it forced communication. As the years grew colder, something even more extraordinary appeared. Lines carved on ochre, patterns etched into bone, abstract shapes painted on cave walls. These were not decorations. They were expressions of memory, identity, or perhaps hope. To create art when food was scarce, to make symbols while fearing tomorrow, tells us something profound about our ancestors. They were becoming beings who could imagine worlds not yet real. They were becoming storytellers. And storytelling, in its earliest form, may have been a survival strategy, a way to bind groups together, to teach, to comfort, to give meaning during years of darkness. Hunger teaches cooperation, cold teaches planning, fear teaches communication, and so language began to grow, not suddenly, but urgently. More precise sounds, more consistent gestures, shared meanings that allowed small groups to think together. Some anthropologists believe Toba accelerated the development of structured language. When survival depends on coordination, communication becomes essential. A single idea, clearly spoken, could save an entire band. A single warning could preserve a bloodline. A single story could carry knowledge across generations. In a world of ice and ash, words became warmth. Over centuries, the ash settled, skies brightened, grass returned in faint, tender green. Animals tentatively repopulated regions long abandoned, and humanity, reduced to a near-silent whisper, began to rise again. But the people who emerged from Toba's shadow were transformed. They were tool makers, symbol makers, storytellers, planners. They carried a mind capable of imagining beyond the immediate, a mind unmistakably human. So, when we ask our opening question, did Toba nearly end us? Or did it shape us? The answer rises softly from the past. Toba threatened our existence, but in trying to survive it, we became something greater. In every age, crisis presses against the human spirit, and every time, that spirit answers, not with surrender, but with imagination. If you'd like to keep exploring the quiet moments where our ancestors stood on the edge and chose to rise, you're welcome to continue the journey with Prehistoric Shadows, where the past still breathes beneath the dust. And perhaps, in their struggle, we can finally see our own reflection